Your name isn't on the list, my father remarked, nonchalantly, as if it meant nothing. I simply smiled, set down a gift, and walked off. Then one man stood up and said, "That's my boss." The whole room froze. Can you imagine being locked out of your own mother's 60th birthday party? Standing there, gift in hand, my heart absolutely shattered, because my own father told me I wasn't on the list. Not just uninvited, but blocked at the door, while my sister Brooke smirked in triumph. What the hell happened next to lead to that kind of betrayal from the people who should love you most? Let me take you back a bit. Growing up as the middle child in suburban Chicago, it was never easy. I was always in the shadow. My older sister, Brooke, was the academic superstar, always center stage with her trophies. My younger brother, Tyler, the adored baby of the family. If you looked at our old family photos, you'd see it, Brooke beaming, Tyler being coddled, and me, well, I was just there, often half cropped out of the frame. But Mom used to be different. She was my anchor. I remember being 7, completely devastated after not getting an invite to Melissa Anderson's birthday party. Dad just shrugged it off, "Not everyone gets invited to everything, Morgan." But Mom sat me down, just the two of us, and we made paper party hats. We had our own little celebration. "You're special in your own way, Morgan," she whispered, "a secret just for us. Never forget that." When I was 12, I didn't get first place in the science fair like Brooke always did. I got third. But Mom framed my certificate anyway. "It's not about being the best," she said, "it's about doing your best." She hung it right next to Brooke's wall of achievements. Dad took it down 3 days later, muttering about clutter, but Mom secretly kept it tucked away in her bedside drawer. That was Mom. She saw me. Then for my 16th birthday, my friends bailed last minute for some more popular girls' party. Total heartbreak. But Mom, without a word, drove me 2 hours into the city to see a musical I'd been dying to see. We dressed up, had dinner at a fancy restaurant, and for one night, I was the most important person in the world. Sometimes it's quality, not quantity that matters with relationships, she told me. These moments, these precious, quiet acts of love, were proof that someone in my family truly saw me. But then things changed drastically. When I left for college, unlike Brooke, who stayed close to home for Northwestern, I ventured further, to Boston University. "Why so far?" Dad complained, his voice laced with thinly veiled accusation. "Are we not good enough for you?" That distance, initially just geographic, slowly but surely morphed into something far more painful, emotional distance. After college, I surprised everyone, especially myself, by absolutely thriving in the cutthroat tech industry. I climbed that corporate ladder aggressively. By 34, I was director of operations at Vertex Technologies, managing hundreds of employees and a budget that made my father's small-town insurance agency look like a kid's lemonade stand. My success, ironically, created a gaping rift. Holidays became a minefield. "So, you're still at that computer company?" Dad would ask, even though I'd sent family gift baskets with the Vertex logo every Christmas for 5 years. The inevitable follow-up was always, "When are you going to settle down and give your mother grandchildren?" It didn't matter that Brooke and her boyfriend Jesse weren't having kids either. My life choices were always under the microscope. But the real festering tension was with Brooke. 3 Thanksgivings ago, after one too many glasses of wine, she cornered me in the kitchen. "You think you're so special with your fancy Boston life," she hissed, savagely slicing into the pumpkin pie. "You have no idea what it's like here, dealing with Mom and Dad every day while you just send occasional gifts and think that counts as family." "I call every week," I defended myself, my voice tight. "To show off," she snapped back. "Everything's a competition with you, Morgan. Always has been." The sheer irony of that statement coming from Brooke was staggering. My entire childhood, I'd watched her collect accolades while I clapped from the sidelines. That's not fair, I said, trying to keep my voice low to diffuse the situation. I've worked hard for what I have. Her eyes narrowed to slits. You think you're better than us because you escaped. Let me tell you something. Mom doesn't brag about your job. She doesn't even understand what you do. At least I'm here being a real daughter. Those words cut deeper than she knew. After that Thanksgiving, Mom's weekly calls became monthly, then sporadic. When we did speak, she sounded distant, distracted, like she was holding something back. The woman who once cherished my third-place science fair certificate now struggled to remember basic details about my life. My younger brother, Tyler, as always, followed Brooke's lead. Our once playful texts devolved into one-word responses. The last time I visited, he spent the entire weekend glued to his phone, barely acknowledging my presence. Dad had never been my champion, but his disapproval now calcified into something harder, colder. Your mother worries about you, he'd say during our increasingly rare conversations. All alone in that city, working too much. It's not natural for a woman your age. I tried to explain that I wasn't alone, that I had friends, colleagues, a vibrant life I'd built. But to them, success without their definition of family wasn't success at all. It was failure dressed in designer clothes and a corner office. Mom's gradual withdrawal, though, that hurt most of all. The woman who once drove 2 hours for a musical couldn't seem to spare 5 minutes on the phone without Brooke hovering in the background. Brooke says you're too busy for us now, Mom mentioned once, her voice small. Is that true, Morgan? No matter how I answered, the narrative had already been written. I was the daughter who left. The one who chose career over family. The villain in a story I never agreed to star in. Last Thanksgiving was the absolute breaking point. After another pointed comment from Brooke about my empty life, I finally snapped. At least I built my life myself, I said, my voice dangerously quiet as I set down my fork. I didn't just slide into Dad's business and pretend that makes me special. The table fell utterly silent. Mom looked stricken. Dad's face went crimson. I think you should leave, Brooke said quietly, her eyes gleaming with a chilling victory. So, I packed my bag, called a car, and flew back to Boston that night. No one called to apologize. No one called at all. 3 months later, my world stopped. I was mindlessly scrolling through Facebook during a late night at the office when I saw it. A post about Mom's 60th birthday celebration. Not from her page, she barely used social media, but from Brooke's. A grand party with all extended family invited. Everyone except me. Brooke had created an event page with a professionally looked banner, celebrating Patricia Williams, 60 years of love. The guest list included relatives I hadn't seen in years, childhood neighbors, even Mom's old college roommate who now lived in Florida. My name was conspicuously, painfully absent from the going list. I stared at my screen, the blue light illuminating my face in the darkened office. It was nearly midnight in Boston, and I was still reviewing quarterly reports while the cleaning staff vacuumed around my desk. This dedication, this relentless drive, was exactly what my family criticized, but it was also what had earned me respect in an industry not always kind to women. My assistant Rachel appeared in the doorway. Morgan, you're still here. The security guy called up wondering if everything was okay. I minimized the Facebook tab quickly. Just finishing up some things. Rachel nodded, unconvinced. You know, normal people don't work until midnight on Fridays. Since when am I normal? I attempted to smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. After she left, I reopened Facebook and did something I rarely allowed myself. I scrolled through family photos. Mom's 50th birthday last year, which I'd missed due to a Tokyo client emergency. Tyler's promotion to head bartender, which I'd congratulated via text. Dad and Mom's anniversary dinner. Everyone smiling, except for the empty space where I should have been. I picked up my phone and called my mother directly. It was late, but she was always a night owl. Morgan. She sounded surprised, almost wary. Is everything okay? That was our relationship now. Calls meant emergencies, not connection. Everything's fine, Mom. I swallowed hard. I saw about your birthday party on Facebook. A pause. Oh, that. I didn't get an invitation, I said, hating how small my voice sounded. I thought. She hesitated. Brooke said you were too busy. That big project you mentioned, the Singapore expansion, that's next month. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Mom, it's your 60th birthday. Of course, I'd make time. Well, her voice warmed slightly. Of course, you should come. It would be lovely to see you. The conversation continued awkwardly. Mom providing basic details, but sounding strangely hesitant. After hanging up, I immediately booked a first-class ticket to Chicago for the following weekend. $2,100 I couldn't really afford to spend, but this felt important, necessary. The next morning, I called Rachel from my apartment. I need to take Friday off next week. Family thing. You taking time off for family? She sounded genuinely shocked. Are you feeling okay? Very funny. Just reschedule the vendor meetings, please. Preparing for this trip became an operation of military precision. I spent hours finding the perfect gift, a vintage emerald brooch from an antique shop that reminded me of one Mom had always admired in her grandmother's jewelry box, paired with a premium spa package at a resort she'd mentioned wanting to visit. The total came to just under $3,000. Extravagant, perhaps, but I wanted to show them all that despite my absence, I still knew what would make Mom happy. Shopping for an outfit was equally strategic. I finally settled on a sapphire blue dress, conservative enough for Dad's approval, but stylish enough to show I was doing well. Not that I needed their validation, I told myself unconvincingly while swiping my credit card. The night before my flight, I practiced conversations in my bathroom mirror. So great to see everyone. Asterisk smile. Not too eager, asterisk, the company, things are going well, but enough about work. Asterisk deflect. Don't brag, asterisk, Brooke, I'm sorry about what I said last Thanksgiving, even though she started it. I rehearsed these lines like preparing for the most important presentation of my career. In many ways, it was. The morning of my flight, I received a text from Brooke. Heard you're coming. Just don't make this weekend about you. I stared at those words for the entire Uber ride to Logan Airport. How could I even respond to that? I finally typed, looking forward to celebrating Mom, and left it at that. The flight to Chicago gave me 3 hours to alternately hope and worry. I flipped through work documents without absorbing anything, then practiced the deep breathing techniques my therapist, Dr. Levine, had recommended. Your family triggers old patterns, she'd explained. Remember you're returning as the adult you are now, not the child you were then. Easy to say, harder to feel when approaching the gravitational pull of childhood dynamics. I checked into the Westin downtown rather than staying at my parents' house in the suburbs. Another decision that would likely be interpreted as Morgan being too good for us. But the thought of sleeping in my old bedroom, still decorated with my high school debate team pennants, was unbearable. I needed neutral territory, somewhere to retreat if things went badly. That evening, I ordered room service and laid out my outfit for tomorrow, the blue dress, silver heels that weren't too high, simple pearl earrings that had been a college graduation gift from Mom. Everything calculated to send the right message, successful but not showy, professional but still feminine, independent but still your daughter. I barely slept. By morning, I had convinced myself this trip was either going to heal everything or break what little connection remained. There was no middle ground. I applied my makeup with trembling hands, curled my hair, and practiced one last smile in the mirror. "Happy birthday, Mom," I whispered to my reflection. "I hope you're glad to see me." The venue was a renovated boathouse overlooking Lake Michigan. Exactly Mom's style, elegant, but unpretentious, with natural wood beams and floor-to-ceiling windows capturing the April sunlight dancing across the water. I recognized cars in the parking lot, Uncle Robert's vintage Corvette, Aunt Diana's practical Subaru, even my cousin Stephen's motorcycle, all the Williams family vehicles, familiar as childhood toys. As I approached the entrance, clutching my carefully wrapped gift, I spotted my father's college friend, Thomas, smoking outside. "Morgan." His eyebrows shot up. "My goodness, is that you? It's been years." "Hi, Mr. Peterson." I smiled, falling back into childhood formality. "Good to see you. You look just like your mother at your age," he said, giving me an awkward side hug. "She'll be thrilled you made it. She was just saying she wished all her children could be here today." That comment sent a confusing ping through me. Why would Mom say that if she knew I was coming? Before I could question further, my cousin Eliza emerged from the building. "Morgan." Her surprise seemed genuine as she embraced me. "I had no idea you were coming. Brooke said you couldn't make it because of some big work thing." "I rearranged some meetings," I said carefully, an increasing unease coiling in my stomach. "It's Mom's 60th. I wouldn't miss it." Eliza's expression shifted subtly. "Right. Well, everyone's inside. Your mom looks beautiful." I followed her to the entrance where my father stood greeting guests. His gray hair was freshly cut, his posture still military straight from his years in the reserves. When he saw me, no smile came. Instead, his face hardened into the expression I knew from childhood reprimands. "Morgan," he said flatly. "What are you doing here?" The question knocked the rehearsed greeting from my mind. "I'm here for Mom's birthday," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Is that so surprising?" He looked down at the clipboard in his hand, running his finger down what appeared to be a guest list. "You're not on the list." Those 4 words hung in the air between us, a cold, calculated blow. I felt blood rush to my face, acutely aware of others watching this interaction. "There must be some mistake," I said quietly, desperate to keep my composure. "I spoke to Mom last week. She said, of course, I should come." Dad's expression didn't change. "There's no mistake. This party has been planned for months by people who are actually involved in your mother's life." The deliberate cruelty of his words stole my breath. Behind him, I could see other guests pretending not to watch while absolutely watching. This humiliation was public, intentional. "Dad," I said, lowering my voice further, pleading. "Please don't do this. I flew in specifically for this. I just want to wish Mom a happy birthday." "You should have called first," he said, completely dismissive. "This is a private party for people who actually make time for family." Before I could respond, Brooke appeared at his side, her boyfriend, Jesse, trailing behind her. She wore a pink dress nearly identical to one Mom owned. Her hair styled in Mom's preferred soft waves. The visual message wasn't subtle. She was the true daughter, the rightful heir to maternal affection. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice syrupy sweet, though her eyes gleamed with undeniable satisfaction. "Morgan's not on the guest list," Dad repeated, his voice firm. "Oh," Brooke's false concern was almost artistic. "That's awkward. I thought we discussed this, Morgan, after what happened at Thanksgiving." "We didn't discuss anything," I said, fighting to keep my composure. "I spoke to Mom directly. Mom probably felt put on the spot." Brooke shrugged. "A picture of innocence. You know how she hates confrontation." I looked past them, desperately trying to locate my mother in the crowd inside. Where is she? I'd like to speak with her myself. She's busy with her actual guests, Dad said, cutting me off. I'm not going to let you upset her on her birthday. I noticed Jesse shifting uncomfortably behind Brooke, his gaze fixed on the ground. He was tall, conventionally handsome with dark hair and glasses, wearing a suit that looked expensive but slightly too large. I'd never met him before, only seen him in Facebook photos. He seemed distinctly uncomfortable with the scene unfolding. As I stood there, my beautiful gift still in my hand, I overheard an older woman whisper, "Is that Morgan?" I thought she wasn't speaking to the family anymore. Another voice, Cousin Stephen's wife perhaps, added, "Brooke said she called Patricia an unsupportive mother at Thanksgiving." Can you imagine? And then Brooke herself, not even bothering to lower her voice, did she really think she was welcome after what she said? In that agonizing moment, I understood with crystal clarity. This rejection wasn't impromptu. It was planned, anticipated, probably even anticipated with pleasure. I wasn't just being excluded. I was being punished. I took a deep breath. I would not cry here. I would not give them the satisfaction. I understand, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. My voice, though quiet, was steady. Please give this to Mom. It's her birthday gift. I handed the beautifully wrapped package to my father, who took it reflexively. Tell her I love her and hope she has a wonderful birthday. I continued, maintaining eye contact with him, not flinching. That's all I came to say. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked away. Back straight, pace measured. I didn't allow myself to rush, though every instinct screamed to run from this public humiliation. Behind me, I heard Brooke's sharp laugh. Then my father's deeper voice saying something I couldn't quite catch. I made it all the way to my rental car before my hand started shaking so badly I couldn't get the key into the ignition. The carefully applied mascara was in danger of creating black rivers down my cheeks. I gripped the steering wheel, focusing on my breathing. In 2, 3, 4, out. 2, 3, 4, I would not break down in this parking lot. I would drive back to the hotel, pack my things, change my flight, and be back in Boston by tomorrow. This chapter would be closed forever. No more attempts at reconciliation. No more agonizing holiday phone calls. No more pretending we were a family instead of people who once merely lived in the same house. I was about to start the car when a knock on my window nearly caused me to jump out of my skin. Jesse, Brooke's boyfriend, stood beside my car, gesturing for me to roll down the window. His expression was concerned, almost apologetic. For a moment, I considered ignoring him and just driving away, but curiosity, a faint ember of it, won out. I lowered the window partway. "Morgan," he said, then cleared his throat nervously. "Miss Williams." "Just Morgan is fine," I replied automatically, then frowned. "Wait, how do you know to call me Miss Williams?" Jesse glanced back toward the venue, then at me again. "Because I work at Vertex Technologies in Boston. I'm in the software engineering department, 3rd floor." My mind raced, trying to place him. "Jesse?" "Jesse Lawson," he supplied. "I joined about 8 months ago. Transferred from the Chicago office to be closer to Brooke on weekends. I recognized you immediately when I saw you today. The universe sometimes has a twisted, utterly baffling sense of humor. Of all the tech companies in Boston, my sister's boyfriend worked at mine. I'd been so busy with the operations side of the business that I hadn't connected the dots about a new engineer. Does Brooke know you work for me?" I asked, a fresh wave of disbelief washing over me. "Not exactly," he admitted, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "She knows I work at Vertex, but I never specified that you were, well, essentially your boss." I finished for him. The organizational chart at Vertex meant that while Jesse didn't report directly to me, I was definitely in his upward management chain. May I sit down? He asked, gesturing to the passenger seat. I feel like I owe you an explanation. Against my better judgment, I unlocked the door. Jesse slid in immediately, making my rental car feel smaller with his tall frame. I should have said something in there, he began, his voice low. That wasn't right what they did. Why didn't you? The question came out sharper than I intended. Complicated family dynamics, he sighed. I've only been dating Brooke for about a year. Still trying to navigate everything. Well, now you've seen the Williams family at our finest, I said bitterly, the words tasting like ash. That's actually why I followed you out here, Jesse said, turning to face me directly. What happened in there wasn't spontaneous. It was discussed in advance. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? Last night at the rehearsal dinner, Brooke and your dad were talking about what to do if you showed up. Your dad said he'd handle it. He paused. Your mom wasn't part of that conversation. The revelation that they'd actually planned my humiliation was somehow worse than thinking it was an impulsive cruelty. Does my mother even know I tried to come today? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Jesse hesitated. She asked about you earlier, wondered if you might surprise her. Brooke told her you'd sent your regrets weeks ago. That's a lie, I whispered. I know. Jesse nodded. I've picked up a lot over the past year. Brooke talks about you constantly. I'm sure it's all flattering, I said dryly. It's complicated, he replied, choosing his words carefully. There's a lot of jealousy there. She compares herself to you all the time, though she'd never admit it. Jealous of what? I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. She's the golden child. Always has been. But you're the one who got away, Jesse said simply. You built something entirely your own. And at work. He trailed off. At work, what? You're respected, Morgan. Really respected. People talk about your leadership style, your strategic thinking. He looked at me, a genuine admiration in his eyes. When I realized Brooke's sister Morgan was the same Morgan Williams everyone at Vertex admires, it was strange. Reconciling those two images. I sat in stunned silence, processing his words. While I'd been feeling like a failure in my family's eyes, I'd apparently become something of a professional role model without even realizing it. Brooke has been systematically poisoning your relationship with your parents, Jesse continued, laying it all out. Small comments, reframing your absences as deliberate rejections, exaggerating arguments. When your mom mentioned missing you, Brooke would remind her of some perceived slight. And my mother believed her. The pain in that question was evident, a fresh wound. Your mom's been having some health issues, Jesse said gently. Nothing severe, but enough to make her more vulnerable to manipulation. Mild depression, some memory issues. Brooke's been helping by managing her social calendar, her medications. The implications hit me like physical blows. While I'd been building my career in Boston, Brooke had been constructing an entirely different narrative here in Chicago. One where I was the villain, the cold-hearted daughter who abandoned her family for corporate success. Why are you telling me this? I finally asked. You're dating my sister. Your loyalty should be to her. Jesse looked down at his hands. Because what happened in there was wrong. And because at Vertex, I've seen how you treat people with respect, even when they make mistakes. The stories don't match up. He paused. Also, selfishly, it's awkward when your girlfriend's family drama involves your boss. Despite everything, that made me laugh a little. A genuine, if brittle, laugh. I can imagine. So, what are you going to do? He asked, his gaze earnest. I stared out at Lake Michigan, its surface glittering in the spring sunshine. The easy path would be to drive away, return to Boston, and finally sever these painful ties. The professional in me knew that sometimes cutting losses was the strategic choice. But another part of me, perhaps the part that still remembered my mother making paper party hats when I was 7, couldn't just leave things this way. I think, I said slowly, that it's time everyone heard the truth, including my mother. Jessie nodded, looking both relieved and terrified. I'll support whatever you decide to do. Just remember, I have to see these people at holidays. Don't worry, I assured him, reaching for the door handle. I've learned a thing or two about handling difficult personalities in the corporate world. As we walked back toward the venue, a strange calm settled over me. This confrontation wasn't what I'd planned for today, but perhaps it was exactly what had been needed for years. Walking back into that building was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Harder than my first major presentation to the board. Harder than firing a team member I personally hired. This required a different kind of courage. The courage to face people who'd known you since you wore braces and still believed they had the right to define who you were. Jessie and I entered through a side door, completely bypassing my father's checkpoint at the main entrance. The celebration was in full swing now, about 60 people mingling around circular tables. A slideshow of family photos played on a large screen. I noted my near absence from the curated selection. My mother sat at a central table, looking beautiful in a lavender dress that complemented her silver hair. She was laughing at something Uncle Robert was saying, completely unaware of the drama that had unfolded moments before. At the entrance, Brooke noticed us first. Her eyes widened, darting between Jessie and me with dawning comprehension. She immediately began making her way across the room, but it was too late. Jessie stepped forward, his voice carrying across the room as conversations naturally lulled. "Everyone," he announced, his voice clear and surprisingly strong, "I'd like to introduce Morgan Williams, Patricia's daughter." And then he added, with devastating timing, "and my boss at Vertex Technologies." The room fell utterly silent. My mother's head snapped up, her eyes finding mine with a mixture of confusion and what appeared to be genuine delight. "Morgan." She stood up, her napkin falling forgotten to the floor. "You came." Before I could respond, Brooke reached us, her face flushed with anger. "Jessie, what are you doing?" she hissed, barely audible. "The right thing," he said simply. My father appeared next, his expression thunderous. "I thought I made myself clear at the door." "You did," I replied, keeping my voice level, resolute. "But it seems there's been some confusion about my relationship with this family that needs clearing up." Mom approached, looking between us with growing concern. "What's going on, Robert? Why do you look so angry?" "Morgan, sweetheart, I'm so happy you're here." Her sincere joy at seeing me confirmed what Jessie had said. She hadn't known about my rejection at the door. The realization both relieved and infuriated me. "Mom," I said gently, taking her hands in mine. "I need to ask you something important. Did you think I didn't want to come to your birthday?" She blinked, confusion evident. "Well, Brooke said you were too busy with work, that big project you mentioned." "I never said that," I told her firmly. "In fact, when we spoke, I specifically said I would be here. I took time off work. I flew in yesterday." "But then why?" Her gaze shifted to Brooke, then to my father. "I was just at the door," I continued, aware that the entire party was now watching this family drama unfold in rapt silence. "Dad told me I wasn't on the guest list, that this party was for people who actually make time for family." Mom's expression changed from confusion to absolute shock. "Robert, is this true?" My father's face reddened. "Patricia, we discussed this after what she said about the family." "We discussed no such thing." Mom interrupted, her voice uncharacteristically sharp. "Morgan is my daughter. Of course, she's welcome at my birthday." The room had gone so quiet you could hear ice clinking in glasses. This wasn't how I'd imagined the confrontation playing out, in front of extended family and my mother's bridge club. But perhaps that public accountability was exactly what was necessary. There's been a pattern, I said, addressing my mother directly, but keenly aware of our stunned audience. For years now, things I've said have been twisted. Absences due to work portrayed as deliberate neglect. My life choices framed as rejections of family. Brooke stepped forward, her smile tight, a desperate attempt to regain control. This is hardly the time or place, Morgan. Always making everything about yourself, even Mom's birthday. That's exactly what I mean. I gestured toward her. That characterization of me, selfish, self-centered, it's the narrative that's been created, but it's not true. I turned to face the room at large, scanning the familiar faces. Many of you have known me since childhood. I've never been perfect, but I've always loved my family. My career took me to Boston, not Mars. Phone calls work both ways. Visits work both ways. I saw my cousin Stephen nod slightly and Aunt Diana whisper something to Uncle Robert. Brooke, I continued, keeping my voice professional, the same tone I used in difficult negotiations at work, has been systematically undermining my relationship with our parents, exaggerating conflicts, reframing my achievements as abandonments. That's ridiculous. Brooke scoffed, but her eyes darted nervously, betraying her. Is it? I turned to Jessie. What did Brooke tell you about me before you met me today? Put on the spot, Jessie looked uncomfortable, but answered honestly. That you were cold, career-obsessed. That you'd called your mother unsupportive and said the family was holding you back. I never said those things, I stated firmly. It was implied. Brooke insisted, desperate. No, it wasn't, I countered. At Thanksgiving, after you accused me of thinking I was better than everyone, I defended myself. I said I built my career myself. That's not an attack on the family. It's a statement of fact after Brooke accused me of having an empty life. Mom looked absolutely devastated. Is this true, Brooke? Have you been turning us against Morgan? Brooke's composure finally cracked. Tears sprang to her eyes and her carefully constructed mask fell away. You don't understand, she cried, her voice raw. She left. She got to leave and become Miss Big Shot Executive while I stayed here taking care of everything, being the good daughter. And what thanks do I get? You still light up more when she calls than when I'm right in front of you. The raw pain in her voice silenced the room. Despite everything, I felt a flash of empathy for my sister. We'd both been trapped in roles assigned to us as children. She, the achiever who stayed, me, the rebel who left. Brooke, Mom said softly. I've never compared you two. I love you both differently because you are different people. Then why do you keep her science fair certificate in your drawer? Brooke demanded, tears streaming down her face now. Third place. She got third place 15 years ago and you still have it. I was stunned. That certificate, a symbol of Mom's quiet support for me, had apparently become for Brooke a symbol of some perceived preferential treatment, a favoritism I'd never experienced in our family. Dad, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. I think we should continue this discussion privately. No, Mom said firmly, a newfound strength in her voice. I'm tired of secrets and misunderstandings in this family. She turned to our assembled guests. I apologize for the drama, everyone. Please enjoy the food and music. My family and I need a moment. She gestured toward a small side room and my father, Brooke, Jessie, and I followed her. As the door closed behind us, I caught glimpses of wide eyes and whispered conversations erupting in our wake. Inside the private room, Mom took charge in a way I hadn't seen in years. Sit down, all of you. We complied like scolded children. Robert, she addressed my father first. Did you turn our daughter away at the door of my birthday party? Dad shifted uncomfortably. I was protecting you, Patricia, after what she said about the family. What exactly did she say? Mom pressed, her gaze unwavering. In her own words, not Brooke's interpretation. My father looked genuinely confused. That we were holding her back, that she had to build her life herself because we never supported her. That's not what I said, I interjected quietly. I said I built my career myself, which is true. It wasn't an attack. It was a statement of fact after Brooke accused me of having an empty life. Mom turned to Brooke. Have you been deliberately keeping your sister and me apart? Brooke's defiance finally crumbled under our mother's direct, unwavering questioning. I was tired of being taken for granted. Morgan gets to swoop in for holidays. Everyone makes a big fuss. Then she disappears again while I'm here every day driving you to doctor's appointments, helping with the house. Doctor's appointments? I interrupted, looking at my mother, a fresh surge of pain and anger washing over me. What doctor's appointments? Mom sighed, a deep, weary sound. I've been having some issues with mild depression and memory. Nothing serious, but it's been challenging. Brooke has been very helpful. You never told me, I said, the hurt evident in my voice. Brooke suggested it might stress you out with your demanding job, Mom admitted, then frowned. But I see now that wasn't her decision to make. The pieces were falling into place. My mother's increasing distance, her confusion during our calls, the way Brooke had positioned herself as the gatekeeper to all family information. I'm sorry, Jessie spoke up unexpectedly, breaking the tension. I should have said something sooner. I've witnessed some of these conversations where things Morgan supposedly said were exaggerated. Brooke turned to him, betrayal blazing in her eyes. You're taking her side. You're boss over your girlfriend. It's not about sides, Jessie said gently. It's about the truth. The word hung in the air. Between us. Truth. Something our family had been dancing around for years, preferring comfortable narratives to difficult realities. I want to try again, I said into the silence. All of us. But we need honesty. No more triangulation. No more gatekeeper games. No more rewriting conversations. Mom reached out and took my hand. I want that, too. I've missed you, Morgan, more than you know. Dad cleared his throat. I may have misjudged some things. If what you're saying is accurate. It wasn't quite an apology, but from my father, it was significant. Brooke remained silent, tears streaming down her face. Now, the careful image she'd cultivated, perfect daughter, family protector, was crumbling, and I couldn't tell if she was mourning its loss or relieved to finally set down the burden. This won't be fixed in one conversation, I acknowledged. But it's a start. As we prepared to rejoin the party, Mom held me back for a moment. Your gift, she said softly. The emerald brooch. How did you know? You showed me Grandma's jewelry box when I was 10, I replied, a small smile playing on my lips. You pointed to a similar one that was lost during the move. You said it was your favorite. Her eyes filled with tears again. You remembered that after all these years. I remember everything important, Mom, I said, squeezing her hand. Just because I'm not here doesn't mean I'm not present. We returned to the celebration. The tension was still palpable, but somehow lighter. The truth, even painful truth, weighs less than lies. As guests slowly resumed their conversations, I noticed something unexpected. Family members approaching me, making real connections rather than just small talk. Even my father made an effort, awkwardly asking about my work with genuine interest for perhaps the first time in my adult life. Brooke remained distant, processing her new reality. This confrontation had exposed not just her actions, but her deep insecurities. Healing that relationship would take the most time, if it could be healed at all. But as Mom cut her birthday cake with me standing on one side and Brooke on the other, both of us reflected in her smile, I felt something I hadn't expected to find that day: hope. The Monday after Mom's birthday, I returned to my office in Boston with the emotional equivalent of a hangover. The confrontation had been necessary but draining. I'd extended my stay through Sunday, spending time with Mom, having stilted but civil conversations with Dad, and giving Brooke the space she clearly needed. Rachel looked up from her desk as I walked in, coffee in hand. "So, how was the family reunion?" "Eventful," I replied, managing a small smile. "Very eventful." "And did they appreciate the amazing, successful woman you've become?" she asked, only half joking. "Actually," I said, surprising myself with the realization, "I think they're starting to." The professional implications of the weekend hit me around 11 that morning when I received an email from HR confirming a transfer request for Jesse Lawson. My sister's boyfriend was moving from software engineering to the product development team. A lateral move that would take him out of my direct reporting chain. Professionally appropriate, personally complicated. I called Jesse that afternoon. "You didn't have to transfer departments," I said when he answered. "It seemed like the right thing to do," he replied. "Cleaner boundaries given everything." "How's Brooke taking all of this?" I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Jesse's sigh carried through the phone. "She's struggling. Your confrontation shattered the narrative she's been living in. She gave me an ultimatum Saturday night." My stomach tightened. "You or me?" "Essentially," he confirmed. "She said if I respected her, I'd quit Vertex." The manipulation was so familiar, it almost made me laugh. "What did you tell her?" "That I respect myself too much to let anyone dictate my career choices," he said simply. "We're taking a break while she processes everything." I felt a stab of guilt. "I never meant to come between you." "You didn't," Jesse assured me. "This was coming anyway. I've been noticing patterns in how she handles conflict. Your confrontation just accelerated things." After hanging up, I stared out my office window at the Boston skyline. The personal and professional had collided in ways I never imagined, creating ethical challenges no business school case study had prepared me for. I scheduled a meeting with our chief ethics officer that afternoon, explaining the situation in clinical terms. "I need to ensure there's no appearance of impropriety in how I manage the situation," I concluded. Diane listened attentively before responding. "Document everything. Recuse yourself from any direct decisions involving Jesse, and consider bringing in an executive coach to help navigate the personal/professional boundaries." I followed her advice, setting clear protocols that would protect both Jesse's career and my professional integrity. It was strange applying corporate governance to family drama, but perhaps that structure was exactly what was needed. Meanwhile, I was processing my own emotional responses to the weekend's revelations. I scheduled an emergency session with Dr. Levine, my therapist. "You stood up for yourself," she noted after I recounted the confrontation. "How did that feel?" "Terrifying," I admitted. "And then, liberating. The family dynamics you've described are classic," she explained. "The golden child who stays versus the scapegoat who leaves. Your sister's identity became wrapped up in being the good daughter who sacrificed, while you became the selfish one who pursued your own path. Neither characterization is accurate or fair. How do we fix it?" I asked, a genuine plea in my voice. Dr. Levine smiled gently. "That's the million-dollar question. It starts with continued honesty and adjusted expectations. Your family won't change overnight, if at all." 2 weeks after the birthday party, Mom called with news that made my heart sink. Her doctor had confirmed early-stage cognitive decline. Not Alzheimer's, but noticeable memory issues that would likely progress. "I should have told you sooner," she said, her voice small. Brooke thought, "Mom," I interrupted gently. I need you to make me a promise. From now on, you'll tell me these things directly. Not through Brooke, not through Dad. We need to rebuild our relationship without intermediaries. I promise, she said, and I heard a new determination in her voice, a resilience I hadn't heard in years. In fact, I've been thinking. Would it be possible for me to visit you in Boston? See your life there? The question stunned me. In 15 years, neither of my parents had visited my adopted city. I'd love that, Mom. When were you thinking? Next month. Your father has a fishing trip planned. The implication that she wanted to come alone, to see me without the family dynamics interfering, warmed something long cold inside me. I'll send you flight options tonight, I promised, a lump in my throat. At work, I threw myself into the Singapore expansion with renewed focus. The personal clarity somehow translated to professional sharpness. I found myself making bolder strategic decisions, pushing back more confidently against bad ideas, advocating more fiercely for my team. Something's different about you, my boss, Alan, commented after I successfully negotiated a complicated vendor contract. More centered. I'm learning to bring my whole self to work, I replied, surprising us both with the personal disclosure. The Jessie situation remained delicate. We maintained strictly professional interactions at the office, but occasionally met for coffee on weekends to process the ongoing family drama. His relationship with Brooke remained on pause, though they still communicated sporadically. She's seeing a therapist, he told me during one such coffee. Your mom insisted. That news gave me more hope than anything else. Brooke voluntarily seeking help suggested she might be ready to examine her own role in the family dysfunction. 3 months after the birthday confrontation, I received the most unexpected email of my career. The CEO wanted to meet to discuss a new VP position overseeing global operations. The promotion would mean more responsibility, more travel, and significantly more visibility within the company. During the interview, CEO Stephanie Davis asked something unexpected. The role requires difficult conversations and standing firm under pressure. Tell me about a time you've demonstrated those qualities outside of work. I took a deep breath and shared a carefully edited version of the birthday confrontation, focusing on the principles of truth-telling and boundary setting rather than the messy family details. When I finished, Stephanie nodded thoughtfully. That's exactly why we're considering you for this role, Morgan. Your technical skills are exceptional, but it's your integrity and courage that set you apart. A week later, I accepted the VP position. The first person I called was my mother. I'm so proud of you, she said, her voice clear and present in a way it hadn't been in years. I always knew you were destined for important things, even when I was getting third place in science fairs, I teased gently. Especially then, she replied, a soft laugh in her voice. Because you did it your way, not anyone else's. As I hung up, I realized something profound had shifted. For the first time in my adult life, I felt both professionally successful and personally authentic with my family. The walls between those worlds were finally beginning to dissolve. 3 months after the birthday confrontation, my mother stepped off the plane at Logan Airport. Her first visit to my Boston life. I waited nervously at the gate, feeling like I was picking up a first date rather than my own mother. Morgan, she called, waving enthusiastically when she spotted me. She looked smaller somehow, more fragile than I remembered, but her eyes were bright and clear. Welcome to Boston, Mom, I said, embracing her tightly. I can't believe you're finally here. The week that followed was nothing short of transformative. I took 3 days off work, an unprecedented act that had Rachel checking if I had a fever, and showed Mom every aspect of my life here. My apartment with its view of the Charles River, my favorite coffee shop where the baristas knew my order by heart, the hidden garden in the public library where I read during lunch breaks. It's beautiful, she said as we walked along the waterfront, her arm tucked in mine. Your life here. I can see why you love it. On her third day, I brought her to the Vertex offices. Watching my mother interact with my colleagues, seeing her obvious pride as people spoke highly of my work, healed something deep within me. This wasn't the strange family narrative of Morgan, the absent daughter, but rather Morgan, the respected leader. Jesse greeted us professionally, maintaining the appropriate boundaries we'd established. But I noticed the warm way he spoke to my mother, the genuine respect in his interaction. Whatever happened with him and Brooke, he had become an unexpected ally in my family's healing process. When Mom returned to Chicago, something fundamental had changed. Our weekly calls resumed, but with new depth and honesty. She began sending me small packages, a book she thought I'd enjoy, a scarf that matched my eyes, tokens that said, "I see you more clearly now than words." My father made efforts, too. In his own awkward way, he started emailing articles about the tech industry with comments like, "Thought you might find this relevant." Small steps, but meaningful ones. The situation with Brooke remained the most complex. For 2 months after the confrontation, we didn't speak directly. Then unexpectedly, she called one evening as I was preparing for a presentation. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said without preamble, "and a lot of therapy." "That's good," I replied cautiously. "I'm not ready to talk about everything," she continued. "But I wanted to say I understand now that I was wrong about some things. The way I portrayed you to Mom and Dad wasn't fair." It wasn't quite an apology, but from Brooke, it was significant. "Thank you for telling me that," I said, my voice softer than I expected. "Jesse says you've been very professional about everything," she added. "He respects you a lot." "He's a good person," I offered. "Whatever happens between you two, I think he cares about you." "We're working through things," she said vaguely. "Anyway, I should go, but I wanted you to know I'm trying." My promotion to VP brought new challenges and opportunities. The role required more travel, including regular trips to Singapore for our expansion there. Ironically, this increased my visits to Chicago as O'Hare became my frequent layover between international flights. During these layovers, I began scheduling brief visits with my parents. Sometimes just dinner at the airport with Mom, sometimes an overnight stay that included Dad. Gradually, these short, frequent connections built something more authentic than our previous pattern of tense holiday gatherings. My mother's health stabilized with proper treatment for her depression and cognitive issues. "The doctors say reducing stress has helped enormously," she told me during one visit. "All that family tension was literally making me sick." 6 months after the birthday confrontation, I hosted Thanksgiving in my Boston apartment. A deliberate reclaiming of the holiday that had been the breaking point the previous year. Mom and Dad accepted the invitation immediately. Tyler came, bringing his new girlfriend. Brooke declined, but sent a surprisingly thoughtful gift basket. As we gathered around my dining table, expanded with a rented table to accommodate everyone, I realized this was the first family gathering that felt genuine rather than performative. We weren't playing roles assigned in childhood. We were adults choosing to connect. Before we ate, Mom said, raising her glass, "I want to thank Morgan for bringing us together, not just physically in this beautiful home, but emotionally. Your courage to speak truth has changed our family." Dad nodded, uncharacteristically emotional. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about the kind of father I've been, the kind I want to be going forward. I'm proud of you, Morgan. Your success, yes, but more importantly, your integrity." That acknowledgement, so long desired and never truly expected, brought tears to my eyes. Later that evening, as everyone helped clean up, another first in Williams' family history, I received a text from Brooke. "Hope dinner went well. Maybe next year." Those 4 words contained more hope than 1,000 forced family photographs. The professional lessons from this personal journey were profound. My leadership style evolved, becoming more authentic and compassionate. I found myself mentoring younger women at Vertex who struggled with work-life boundaries, sharing edited versions of my own journey. Your worth isn't determined by your family's approval or your professional achievements, I told one particularly promising analyst struggling with parental expectations. It comes from living authentically and treating others with dignity. In my next performance review, CEO Stephanie noted, "You've always been excellent at the technical aspects of leadership. Now you're bringing heart to it as well. That combination is rare and valuable." The birthday confrontation that I'd feared would destroy my family had instead begun its transformation. Not into some perfect Hallmark movie unit. We were still messy, still learning, still occasionally falling into old patterns, but we were doing it consciously now, with the courage to call out unhealthy dynamics and the compassion to forgive them. My mother's words during her Boston visit stayed with me. Sometimes being excluded from where you don't truly belong leads you to find where you do. She'd been talking about my career path, but it applied equally to relationships. The painful rejection at her birthday party had ultimately opened the door to more authentic connection. The emerald brooch I'd given Mom became her favorite piece of jewelry, worn to every important family occasion. A small, glittering symbol of being seen and remembered, even from a distance. This spring, we're planning our first family therapy session. Mom, Dad, Brooke, Tyler, and me. Not because we're in crisis, but because we're committed to continuing the healing. It's scheduled for next month in Chicago. I've already booked my flight. Family relationships aren't fixed points, but ongoing journeys. The work of maintaining them never truly ends. But I've learned that healthy boundaries aren't walls that separate us from family. They're clear markers that allow us to safely connect as our authentic selves. What would you have done in my place when Dad said I wasn't on the list? Have you ever had to stand up to family members who misunderstood or misrepresented you? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about navigating complex relationships and finding your authentic voice. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes the path to healing begins with the courage to speak your truth, even when your voice shakes.